Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if, Juubi Naruto x Kaguya, part 2, hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Awesome. That would be the only way to explain the Redeed's last few years of immortality in heaven. After he wiped out the Shinobi Alliance, many horrendous secrets surrounding Konoha and Kumo emerged. From Kumo to Konoha, secret after secret was exposed. Starting with Kumo kidnapping women and children they suspected with bloodlines, and turning them into breeding stock where they would never see daylight again. Next came Konoha, and Danzo's kidnapping of orphans all around the elemental nations for his root program, his illegal and inhumane dealings, and experiments with the Orochimaru, the civilians, and shinobi councils, dark dealings behind the Yondames, Sandame. And Goddame's backs though after the war, Tsunade couldn't stop them due to the overwhelming amount of support they had, and later joined them. Never mind the fact Konoha lost all their allies after the war, after they called for Naruto's death after he killed the last Uchiha. He also found out the reason why Tsunade would agree to kill him. Going through her personal journal, he discovered she became a weak-willed bitch after the war, especially when the Reikage made sexual advances on not only Hinata, but her, as well. It just made her feel young again. Though there was one line that just really pissed him off. If I have to sell Naruto short to feel the joy of being young again, so be it, he'll understand. Besides, his happiness is supposed to be sacrificed in order for others to feel good. I'll just tell him when he's too broken to do anything about it. That was when any and all respect he had for the woman died. After only a few things were leaked, within the first week, you had people seeking refuge inside Yuzu, as they had nowhere else to go, and definitely didn't want to be near either one of those villages. Setsu had into Yuzu Anbu guards, and were stationed everywhere in case of a sneak attack from some vengeful idiots or the occasional thugs. And there were plenty of idiots. Konoha's citizens cried for blood after finding out he not only wiped out the alliance, but exposed their dark secrets. They had sent the last remaining root alive to infiltrate and destroy as much of Yuzu as they could, including all the demon lovers inside. The plan failed, and the Uzumaki let his displeasure and anger be known by walking right into Konoha, killing the last of their Anbu forces, clan heads, and their clans, and finally the civilians within the village. The only thing more embarrassing than the way they thought their numbers alone would beat him, was how they acted like cursing, and damning his name would change the fact they were going to die. He had offered the branch family of the Hyuga clan freedom from their caged bird seals, but in a show of weakness and cowardice, they decided to fight against him. Idiots. After Konoha fell, whether they were allies of Naruto or they simply decided to align with Yuzu simply out of fear for their families, Yuzu had numerous peace treaties waiting to be signed in hopes of avoiding utter annihilation. The Uzumaki eventually married Tamari, and May after he kept his promise, and gave Shion a BAB wife provided he stays in Yuzu, till he's old enough to avoid outside corruption to continue ruling demon country. Izushi had thrived for decades, even after his wives and friends had all passed, and he was left behind to rule alone. That had been a millennial ago. Once known as Uzumaki Naruto, destroyer of the 5 villages, and the Yondaime Mizukage, he was now known as Otsutsuki Naruto, the Ashirado no Kami god of the 10 paths, and god of chaos. After the elemental nations had fallen, swept aside, and forgotten by the development of humanity, he was left as the last remainder of the shinobi lifestyle. Approached by 3 goddesses, they offered him a new life, one with constant battle, subjects for him to rule and command, and a throne for him to rule, watching over a kingdom he could call his home, and with them at his side. The first one was a blonde-haired woman that possessed a godly beauty that was only compared to her companions. Her features were delicate, and her face was framed by her pale blonde hair. Her body could only be described as voluptuous with enormous breasts, wide hips, and a big perky ass. All that was covered by a tiny robe that couldn't hide her figure. This was Kami, creator of destruction and creation, mistress of angels, and goddess of life. The second one was a black-haired woman, her features as delicate as Kami's, but the shape of her face was more oval, her hair pulled into a ponytail, her red eyes shined with malice and mischievousness. Also like Kami, she had a voluptuous figure though her breasts and ass were slightly smaller, her hips flared more. She was wearing a black robe that had weird red marks over it. This was Yami, goddess of the underworld and mistress of demons. The last woman also had an extreme beauty about her. Her skin was very pale, almost ashy, but still lustrous. Her hair was a dark gray, leaning, and covering her left eye giving her a mysterious look, her eyes dulled with insanity and bloodlust. Her chest was petite, compared to the other 2, but still big in normal standards, but her best feature was her wider hips, and her round, perky ass. Her body was barely clothed, only having a white tank top and short shorts. This was Shini or Shiny, goddess of death, and mistress of fallen angels. He didn't have anything to lose if he agreed. His wives, friends, and their children were gone. He had already spent years watching over Yuzu and keeping peace. There weren't really any fights, and that was the one thing he missed. Fighting. No matter how much he had tried to deny it, he was a warmonger, he lived to fight. He loved to fight. He wasn't a warhawk like Danzo, but he just disliked being peaceful all the time. So he accepted. He had unknowingly opened a new life for himself. The three goddesses had turned him into a real god, not just one bound by the chains of one dimensio, and as he learned there were multiple, but able to roam and conquer if he so decided to. Of course there were those that disagreed with this, but due to the overwhelming support from other gods and goddesses, he prevailed. Imagine his shock when he found out he had an entire fan club in both heaven and hell, heaven for his heroic deeds surpassing all odds, and making a name for himself, and hell for killing the arrogant, and sending them down there for their enjoyment. Turns out, though unsurprising to Naruto, all his former friends and such were sent straight to hell to be judged for their crimes against him. It was amusing when he found out, to say the least, and even more funny when he heard what happened to his old teammate, the Uchiha, and all his former friends. The little shit, along with just about the rest of Konoha, even after their deaths by someone they believed as inferior to them, still believed themselves to be kings and queens. Even in hell, surrounded by thousands of demons, orcs, and the bringer of death herself, the Shinigami. Claiming how they were justified, nothing that they did was wrong, how they were above any law, insulting just about any and every demon they could, along with many of them making foul statements about some of the female demons there. It didn't go well. At all. As they were easily found guilty of their crimes, they were sentenced to an eternity within hell, and would work any type of punishment the demons saw fit. Of course they all verbally raged about this, including one pink-haired banshee. Us were saints compared to that monster Naruto Baka. He should be down here. Not us. Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto has committed no crimes, his only sin is not killing you idiots sooner. That comment sparked the Konoha people with enough rage they began shouting slander about him, how he was nothing more than a monster, a dopey, and dead last, a freak of nature, a monstrosity. Having enough of their favorite person to WATCH, I'll elaborate more later on being insulted, both demons and orcs alike lunged at the humans, tearing them apart limb from limb with little to no mercy. Worst part was in hell, slaves didn't die, their bodies recovered eventually. After he heard that, the Otsutsuki couldn't stop smiling for weeks. And why would he? The people that had made his life so miserable before he had became a god, and could fight back, treating him as if he was lower than them or didn't deserve to live. They had finally gotten what they deserved, and would feel pain for the rest of their lives every single day. Nothing could be a more fitting punishment. But back on to the fan club business, from how the Uchiha always ran away from his fan club who literally shouted out, "Have my baby Sasuke-kun." And from seeing how pathetic both Ino and Sakura were with their fangirl mentalities, he thought they were nothing more than a curse. Oh, how wrong he was. Weak-willed, physically lacking fangirls who cared for nothing more than how they looked, and went as far to degrade others on how they looked in order to feel better about themselves, were usually the worst. Always dreaming about their knight in shining armor coming to save them, never training, saying it wasn't for a real woman. Then you had fangirls that not only took care of their body, but trained, instead focusing on how to be an equal to their crush, instead of hopelessly praying, and dreaming of him saving her, then they would kiss like in a fairy tale. He had met many like that, from goddesses to demons, both had worshipped him on a fanatical level which scared him honestly. Apparently from watching his dimension, and watching him grow stronger despite the obstacles that did their best to hold him back, he grew stronger, and eventually killed them all, thus earning many to like him. He had learned from Kami that there were all kinds of dimensions featuring him, as the child of the prophecy. Though many weren't pleasant. Not pleasant at all. There were those where he had been used by his own parents for their sick and twisted goals before they discarded him like he was trash. Ones where he had a sister, who was given Kurama during the sealing, and treated like a princess, whereas he was forgotten, and eventually abandoned due to him not having any talent. Ones where he had been manipulated by the Sandaime, Jiraiya, and Tsunade to be a dumb, hyperactive idiot who wore orange, and shouted about being Hokage while knowing as little as possible before they betrayed him, killing him in the end with smirks on their faces. His only purpose being to make sure Konoha was the strongest village in shinobi history. When asked what he would do about it, he gave an answer that would make Madara run in fear. They will know pain. He finally understood what Madara, Nagato, and Obito meant. In reality, true peace where everyone was happy without fights or wars was a fool's dream. Something unreachable. There was darkness in everyone, and when brought to the light, it turned the person ugly. In every dimension where he was betrayed, manipulated, or used, he could see darkness coming from everyone around, as they avoided him like the plague. When his own sister taunted him for being the reject loser their parents gave up for not being good enough, he snapped. The longer you live, the more you realize reality is just made of pain, suffering, and emptiness. He had brought each world to their knees before wiping them out. Starting with the ones who betrayed him. Everyone felt it, the darkness within him coming to rise. Flashback. The arena was dead silent. No one could comprehend what exactly had just happened. The Namikaze prodigy was dominating her brother, while people in the stands laughed along with Yondaime and his wife. insulting him, degrading him, proving he was nothing more than a lost cause. Then it happened. The boy clutched his head in pain before he let out a roar of rage, and black chakra roared from within him, as his body began to change physically. His midget height of 4'8" changed to 5'8", his dirty blonde hair turned a blood red with black tips, his chest more ripped along with the six-pack he now sported. His clothing went from that hideous neon orange to black shinobi pants, his once yellow teeth now turned in sharp pearly whites, and the immense darkness coming from him. But what really shocked both the civilians and shinobi alike was the mangekyou and rinnegan he sported in his eyes, and the 2 white horns he sported on his head. His skin turned dark black, as a star formed on top of his nose, but in the middle of his eyes, as well. His sister was visibly shaking in fear before she tried to put up a tough front. "Cha. Nice loser, but it doesn't mean anything. You still won't win, and mommy and daddy will always love me more than you," she taunted. The smirk that graced the now Deed's face was unsettling to many, so I could care less about Namikaze and his whore. They were never there for me when I was little, so I definitely don't expect them to be there for me now. In fact, I expect them to even try to help you should I beat you so badly in front of them. He laughed. "You beat me? Ha. Remember the last time you managed to beat me? Mommy kicked you out the hove." She was cut off by a foot placing itself directly in her stomach, sending her flying into the wall. "I remember well. The whore beat me because I beat her favorite child in a duel that was supposed to be completely one-sided." He grinned up at the fuming Minato and Kushina who were glaring daggers at him, hoping he would burn alive. "Tell me, Namikaze, is there any Uzumaki left in you, or did you die after Toad-san told you and Minato about that so-called prophecy?" Their shocked faces said it all. Surprise. It's funny what a 6-year-old can find out when no one gives a fuck about him and never checks up on him. "You never even questioned what would happen to me after Minato told you of the fame it would bring both of you if my beloved sister fulfilled the prophecy. How cute." Naruto sidestepped as his sister slammed an incomplete Rasengan into the ground, an attack that was obviously meant to kill him. "Shut up. So what if they realized I was the only good thing they had in the family? You're a loser playing ninja. An outcast. No one likes you. Just fall in a hole and die somewhere," she shouted. "Will do," he said before he disappeared. Only to appear right in his face and grip her stomach hard directly where the seal was. "But first, I want the 9 tails," he said with a predatory grin. He had never felt so alive after letting his darkness roam free. Of course the Yondaime and his wife along with their entire shinobi force rained down on him with the intent to kill after seeing him pull Kurama from his sister, whose name he still didn't bother to know. He dealt with them quite easily, beating them within an inch of their lives and sending the world in a state of panic. After all, if someone could easily beat Yondaime, his wife, and Konoha's entire shinobi force, and not break a sweat, what was stopping him from coming after them? However, not everyone was against what he did. The Fire Daimyo for instance demanded answers the instant Minato and Kushina woke. They had tried to avoid the question, as best they could, but the threat of removing all funding the village broke that. They did admit everything, from abandoning Naruto, to ignoring him, treating him like a bug, all because he wasn't apart from the prophecy Jiraiya spoke of. The daimyo didn't like that one bit. "So you mean to tell me your child because of some damn prophecy? You don't understand, Natsumi could be the savior of the world. She had to be given all our attention and love. So what if that brat didn't have anyone? You can see he's still nothing more than a pest. You ignorant bitch. That so-called pest just beat you all without so much as a sweat. I felt more power come from him than I've ever felt come from that so-called child of the prophecy. How dare you talk about my daughter like that? Fire daimyo or not, you will not degrade my daughter for that creature. That creature, as you call him, has just made Konoha his #1 enemy, and I assure you, should he take vengeance on your miserable lives, he will not be reprimanded. You can't do that. I won't let you. Try me." He sighed, remembering how he had killed the bitch with chakra chains, her shock and hatred fully known to the world. The Yondaime fell shortly after, victim of his oh so precious eration. Then came the Toad Sage to avenge his student and stop what the Toads had called the God of Chaos. He failed humiliatingly, death by naked women who killed him while he scribbled perversely in his notebook. Fucking loser. With those 3 dead, the rest of Konoha fell easily, as each and every one of them after seeing their strongest ninja fall easily charged blindly in rage. It was like for all the other timelines as well, he showed no mercy to those who betrayed him. Though he had to say, coming back from the dead was a new feeling. He absolutely loved the look of shock and fear on their faces when he came back after years and raised them to the ground, crying, pleading for mercy. He gave none. Afterwards, he became a conqueror of sorts. He traveled to different worlds as a visitor to see what they were like. He found many that were being oppressed by evil beings and people forced into slavery, whether as workers or sex slaves for the more lustful, greedy men. He took on the last name Otsutsuki after a meeting with the Shinju Council, who were also fans of his surprisingly, and they were more than happy to see he wasn't abusing his power, but instead using it to wipe worlds of corruption. He was appointed with the title, God of Chaos, as he was the most intertwined with his inner demons. Unlike Yami, who only swelled in the darkness, or Kami, who swelled in the light, or even Shiny, who had brushed with both sides often. Naruto fully embraced both the dark and light, and had bonded them together, which made him incredibly dangerous, as his power rivaled only Kami's, though she said with how many people were currently worshipping him, he was bound to pass her any day. The life was pretty good for Naruto indeed, as a god. The Redeed grunted, as a woman bounces on top of him, moaning loudly, as her breasts swayed with her bouncing. The woman in question had a curvy figure with big breasts, a nice gropable ass, with blue cat ears, and 2 blue tails with white fur lining it. The straps of her tank top had fallen along with her shirt to her waist, as she bounced. This was none other than the two-tails Bidru, Nibi. Like many other female demons, Nibi had taken a liking to him because of the power he possessed. It also helped that he was incredibly well endowed. Naruto leaned up, and began kissing Nibi's neck, wrapping his arms around her waist before thrusting up. Before he could kumin her, a knock came on the door. Whoever it is, go the fuck away. Naruto barked. Naruto-sama, Yomi-sama, requests your presence. A soft voice said from the other side. Fuck. He growled before exploding within the two-tailed demon woman. Naruto Nibi screamed before she passed out on top of him. The Otsutsuki chuckled, removing her, and placing her comfortably on the bed. He didn't need to worry about covering her since people knew better than to enter his room unannounced. He opened the door to see a dark-skinned female with black hair, with bangs that covered her right eye, golden eyes that had hints of lust, a revealing red-colored navy robe, with a large hemline on the front that exposed her arms, the lateral parts of her huge breasts, and her belly. Hello, Kier. He smiled. The brunette bowed to show respect, then gave him a smile. I apologize for the interruption. Yomi-sama told me it was urgent. And needed your immediate attention. I understand. He said with another smile. Naruto and Kier had met during his visit in the underworld, when he went to laugh at his former comrades. He had enjoyed that time immensely, especially after their befitting roles. Ino, Tsunade, and Hinata were literal fucktoys that got passed around from orc to orc to demon to demon. Ino, from what he heard, caved as soon as the first stick went inside her, unsurprisingly. Hinata and Tsunade had put up resistance, but after being gangbanged for 8 straight times, they inevitably caved in. The two had met while Naruto was mocking the 3 while they were being fucked, calling them whores and sluts. Kier had joined in, and soon after the two had formed somewhat of a friendship. Eventually they came upon a throne room that only rivaled Naruto's in terms of space and room. Though whereas Naruto's throne room was filled with Uzumaki paintings, decorations, and occasionally the heads of his enemies, this one was completely bland and white. I do believe this is where we part, Naruto-sama, Kier said. It is. Do take care of yourself for me, Naruto said, as he walked inside. Naruto smiled, as he saw his 3 favorite people ever in his life. Naruto-kun. The Redeed was immediately glomped between breasts courtesy of the 3 goddesses. Mama, I'm happy to see you too, he mumbled. You must be wondering why you were called here. Upon Naruto's nod, Yami continued. It's about a nuisance we should have just killed long ago. Ao has escaped his confinement, and ran off hoping to find more power in hopes to conquer you, and eventually defeat and force us to marry him. The Otsutsuki's eye twitched. Ao was an Otsutsuki who was outraged with the fact the Shinju Council had chosen Naruto as the Ashirado no Kami, and not him. He was also somehow related to Tsunade, Momoshiki, and Kanshiki, so obviously he had pure hatred for the Redeed. He had challenged Naruto of everyone for the title, and the power he wielded before saying he'd make Yami, Kami, and Shiny his wives before taking over everything. It was incredibly pathetic, and the fight, if you could call it that, was short, as Naruto embarrassed the man, and basically gave him a handicap. The fight wasn't close, just like no one expected it to be. Ao, humiliated to the point of no return, decided to strike at Naruto. His back was turned only to get blinded, and beaten an inch within his life again. Afterwards he was in prison with a bunch of other criminals that rebelled against either Kami, Yami, and Shiny. How did he escape? That place is supposed to be locked down tightly. The 3 goddesses shrugged. All we know is that he and the other inmates formed an escape plan, and broke out. Shiny said. And do you know where he's going? Naruto asked. Upon the 3 avoiding his eyes, he grew annoyed. Just tell me, he said. He's heading to the only place you can obtain Biju-tailed beasts, Kami said, still avoiding her eyes. Naruto's eyes widened in understanding before he snarled. The Elemental Nations. Naruto had made it clear to everyone that the Elemental Nations was his domain, and his domain only. To go into it meant your life was forfeit. You want me to go in after him, don't you? Yami nodded. You're the only one who knows chakra at such a high level, plus you're the only one who can defeat an entire group of Otsutsuki. The others cannot, and would simply die. He sighed before nodding. Every day a new dimension of the Elemental Nations was created, some different, some the same, and some incredibly dark. Though Kami had easily made sure nothing got out of hand by sending him to wipe out everyone in it, should they get too wild. I will die along with my traitorous clansmen. I assure you of that, Naruto said, as he turned and walked out the throne room. His eternal mangekyou spinning rapidly in his right eye. You will soon see the full power of the Ashirato no Kamiatsu Tsukiyao, believe it. Look who's back. Uzumaki Kushina was not the happiest of women, and she hadn't been for a long time. The day she was giving birth to her daughter, Naomi, a masked man claiming to be Uchiha Madara, threatened to kill both her and her child before ripping the Kyuubi from her stomach. Her husband Namikaze Minato had fought off the masked man before going into this mad rant about how his daughter would be the greatest weapon Konoha ever had. You don't get it, Kushina, I never loved you. You were a great fuck, that's all, a means to sire me an heir I could control. Now with you out of the way, I can raise this girl to be my ultimate weapon, and Konoha will be the strongest shinobi village that ever existed. Something inside Kushina became cold and dark that day, and it only grew larger, as the village, Konohagakure village in the Hidden Leaves, demanded her child be killed for having the Kyuubi sealed within her or made into a weapon. Hada Kakashi and Jiraiya didn't take too kindly to their sensei's student being killed, and had attempted to kill Naomi on multiple occasions, but were foiled time and time again, either by the Sandaime Hokage, Mitarashi Anko, Inuzuka Tsume, or herself. Mitarashi Anko had been the only one of her 3 students to stand by and support her during her time of need. Being an outcast herself, Anko knew all about being hated and disliked for something out of her control, and thus had been stuck by her sensei. The same could not be said for her other students, Yuzuki Yugao and Yuhi Kurenai. As she found out from Anko, Kurenai had always been jealous of Kushina for having Minato's attention while she didn't. Instead, she had decided to get under the Uzumaki's wing and learn things secretly about Minato, in hopes of winging him away. When that didn't work, Kurenai had tried multiple times to poison Kushina. Thankfully the Kyuubi had made the poisons relatively harmless, thus foiling Kurenai's plans. Upon finding out the Kyuubi was sealed within her daughter, she had attempted to place Kushina in, and kill Naomi secretly in honor of the Yondaime, but failed, as Kushina got out easily before threatening the Chunin at the time, with death. Her other student, Yuzuki Yugao, was one she had high hopes for, someone she taught the art of Kenjutsu, so to see her betray her was annoying, to put it nicely. Yugao stated she wanted no part with Kushina or her demon spawn, as she called Naomi, wanting no deal with the village outcasts, so it wouldn't damage her reputation with any of her higher-up officers. Kushina's response: kicking her ass, quite literally. The ones who hit her hardest was the betrayal of 3 of her best friends in Uchiha Mikoto, and Hyuga Hitomi, and Nara Yoshino, who when Kushina asked for support, simply stated that in Uchiha Hyuga didn't assist such lower-ranking people such as her. Yoshino simply said he would be too bothersome, and she had more to worry about than her and her little hellspawn. Kushina, being a censor, immediately went to see if they were being affected by any seals to make them switch up. There were none. Her last loyal best friend, one Inuzuka Tsume, who had been the Redeed's best friend far longer than either of the others, had stood by Kushina's side till the end, regardless of the fact a few of her clansmen died in the Kyuubi's rampage or not. She claimed the Inuzuka clan would have her back through whatever she needed, and, as such, they did. The Sandaime, Sarutobi Hiruzen, while angered and saddened at the death of his wife, asked what just happened during the birth. She had told him Everything excluding Minato's madman rant, about the man claiming to be Madara, Minato being taken by the Shinigami, how his Sharingan could control the 9 tails. Once he understood, he did not harbor any ill will against her daughter. However, that was only 3 people, and a clan that supported her. They were against any entire village that wanted her daughter dead or used as a weapon. As a result, she had grown exceptionally cold towards anyone that showed her child malice. Her kind side had only been seen by her child, Anko, Tsume, or Sarutobi. Growing up, Naomi had been influenced by her mother a lot, often acting like her so much she developed an ice-cold personality, as well. Kushina had made sure her daughter was well trained, teaching her how to wield a sword, and even the Uzumaki clan's chakra chains, which were black. When Sarutobi questioned her on this, she gave him a reply that instantly shut him up. When my daughter finally goes to the academy, do you think they'll give her a fair chance like the rest of those brats? No, they'll do any and everything in their power to make sure she fails and gets held back. I won't let that happen. Once Naomi had finally started going to the academy, Kushina was right. The instructors and teachers had done their best to embarrass her, asking questions no Chunin would be able to answer, let alone academy students. When she often asked Naomi about her classmates, she only had one thing to describe them: losers. And she was right. Her classmates were quite frankly losers in all of the senses. Inuzuka Kiba, the son of Tsume, believed he was the shit and thought he was an alpha of sorts. He had attempted to talk to Naomi multiple times, though was blown off multiple times. Nara Shikamaru, the son of Yoshino, was the definition of a slacker, though she knew all Nara men were incredibly smart. He just didn't do anything right, as well as anything. All he did was sleep and stare at clouds. Akamichi Choji was a fat kid who just ate chips all day, and got bullied because of his weight, plus he was friends with the Nara boy. Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura, or, as Anko and Naomi called them, the Banshee sisters, were nothing more than fangirls who just fought over one boy, never trained or exercised, and spent time stalking said boy, or attempting to make themselves look pretty. All three thought they would easily be good one-night stands growing up. Uchiha Sasuke, son of Makoto, the said boy of the girl's affection, was an emo, duck-haired brat who thought the world owed him something. Ever since his sister Itako female Itachi murdered the Uchiha clan to save him, the village had babied the boy silly, giving him stuff for free, giving him free lessons on, and everything else. He had tried to show up Naomi multiple times, only to get beaten quite savagely, earning the hate of his fan club, and the people of Konoha even more, not that she cared. Hyuga Hinata, daughter of Hitomi, was easily one of the worst clan heirs Kushina had ever seen. The girl had no confidence, no self-esteem, she flinched at everything, and fainted at almost nothing. She had even heard from Anko that Hitomi herself was planning on disowning the girl soon, if she didn't start acting like a real Hyuga, as she put it. Abiram Shino was simply a member of the Abiram clan, and one who was disliked by the entire class, simply for being a loser who plays with bugs. Naomi had excelled despite the civilian council and instructors' best plots, and became Kinoichi of the Year. Not that the title meant much considering it wasn't even a race, seeing how she bested her classmates in literally everything. Here's and seeing how anyone else would take the chance to kill Naomi if she was placed within their team, he gave her dual senseis in Anko and Kushina. This of course caused conflict, as the Shinobi Council and Civilian Council demanded Sasuke get 2 senseis, or they would have a serious problem. Sarutobi's response was to pull up the long list of crimes they had committed under his and Minato's rule. That of course had sent them running out of his office in a flash. Though all of that anger and malice could not describe how Kushina was currently feeling right now. They had been given a C-rank mission to guard a bridge builder named Tazuna, and protect him from a grimy businessman named Gato, who was oppressing Wave Country. The mission had been turned to an A-ranked, as they had been attacked by the Demon Brothers, who they disposed of easily. However, their real problem came, as a group of 10 men surrounded them, all grinning evilly. They however didn't come for the bridge builder, but instead for Naomi, or more precisely the Kyuubi's chakra, in order to beat and kill him, whoever he was. The three had put up a good fight, but considering each man the chakra amount of a 2-tailed tailed beast, they didn't stand a chance. And thus there we are now. Their client Tazuna died, having his stomach cut wide open. A look of horror on his face. Naomi, Anko, and her on the ground glaring at the men, as they surrounded them. Oh, and it was raining. Oi boss, we should have some fun with them before we take the Kyuubi's chakra. It's been a while since we last saw any females. One of them said, earning approval from the others. Their bodies are appealing, especially the older Redeed's fine. We'll make them scream our names first. Might even keep them around, as pets afterwards. The leader, a man with shaggy black hair and a tannish brown skin color, said. Idiots. A new arrival said. Anko, Kushina, and Naomi's eyes all widened, as a man standing at 6'7" came into the clearing. An annoyed look plastered on his scarred face. His skin was snow white, he also wore a dark gray kimono with markings around it. He had spiky, dirty white hair, along with a pair of horn-like protrusions, extending from either side of his forehead, along with pupil-less white eyes. Aosama. I thought you would be waiting for us to arrive back at that human's place. A red-haired man said. That was the plan, however, I came due to the fact something rubs me the wrong way here, and I don't like it at all. The man said. Do you have a problem with that? Of course not. So that's the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Doesn't look like much. He insulted, causing Naomi to growl. Boss, can we have the 2 women? They look so defiant, I just want to break them. A brown-haired asked. Ao waved his hand. You can do whatever you want with them, I only care for the 9 tails chakra. What the hell do you even want with the Kyuubi anyway? Anko shouted. Since I see no harm in telling you, since you aren't going to be telling anyone anyway, I was once a feared general of the Shinju Council, worshipped by many, and feared by all. He took a moment to emphasize the point by spreading his arms, to which all 3 girls rolled their eyes. Then his face turned into a scowl, until that damned Uzumaki Naruto came around, favored by those whores they call goddesses. They wanted to bestow upon him the power only an elite such as myself had the right to claim. The Ashirado no Kami, a title known to everyone that instantly inspired fear into the hearts of everyone commanding beasts, only known to the one who wields the title. Kushina, Naomi, and Anko's eyes whitened. Uzumaki. That brat walked in, and beat me while I was weak. Even then he was only able to escape thanks to those bitches intervening, and saving his miserable life. They locked me away so there would be no one to challenge him. By now, by going to the place he gained such power, I will reign supreme, and take my rightful place, as ruler of the gods. He finished, earning roars of approval from his henchmen. In the trees. A figure in the trees nearby watched, as the imbecile delusional man ranted about his so-called claim to glory being stripped from him. His right eye being the only visible one had 3 tomo in it that were spinning slowly. God, he's such a sore loser, and the tales he sprouted are nothing more but words from a buffoon. The figure said. His eyes went to the 3 Kunoichi. Chen. They look like bitches. Depending on how they act will decide whether I entertain myself in this dimension or simply revive Tazuna, wipe their minds of me, and head back home. And now Kyubi, your chakra is mine. Ao shouted from below. Can't never wait, can you? With that, the figure jumped down from his hiding spot. You know, that'd be a good story if half of it was true, and not out of the mouth of an egotistical power-hungry moron like yourself. Everyone looked at the new arrival, as he stood up, standing at a height of 6'3". He wore a black cloak that was being blown by the heavy wind, dark spiky red hair that completely covered the left side of his face. Like how he had 2 horns sprouting from either side of his forehead, but were surrounded by the spiky hair, giving him a fear look, dark fingerless gloves, a grey, long-sleeved collared shirt, black pants, black shinobi boots, and a black belt which held a brown shuriken holster. His right eye still had the 3 tomo though they weren't spinning, yet. Little did they know, the figure was also examining them, starting with the 3 females. Uzumaki Kushina was wearing a torn red shirt that showed her impressive cleavage, that clearly couldn't be held into a bra, brown fingerless gloves, grey shinobi pants that had their own slash marks, and shinobi sandals, her left arm appearing to be holding a wounded spot in her stomach. Her headband did nothing to stop her hair from covering her face due to the rain. Mitarashi Enko was only wearing her fishnet shirt that revealed the areolas of her round huge breasts, since her trench coat had been cut to bits, grey pants with sandals, her spiky purple hair usually in a ponytail, but from the rain and fighting, it was down. Her Konoha headband acts as a belt. She was also heavily drenched from the rain. And finally, Uzumaki Naomi. The girl was wearing the remaining shreds of a black hoodie, a white tank top underneath, that had been thoroughly drenched by the rain showing her breasts easily, her headband wrapped around her neck, black pants with orange flames on the side, from what it looked. Orange bandage wrappings on her arms, and shinobi sandals. Her red hair, like her mother's, had been drenched by the rain, and was currently covering half her face. His eyes then turned to the males. They all ranged from 5'9" to 5'10" with different colored hairstyles. Naruto. Ao growled in anger, how did you catch up with us? The AD chuckled, you didn't exactly believe that breaking out of prison, taking inmates with you, and crossing into a domain that does not belong to you wouldn't go unnoticed, did you? Ao snorted before he smirked, you wouldn't have such an easy time defeating me, as you did before, after I obtained the 9 tails chakra. You then drop the axe, and handle him. He roared. Yes, Ao-sama. They shouted before dropping their henges. The fake appearances dropped to show 10 new men standing there, all of them having new features. Fallen gods. Naruto snarled. Fallen gods were simply gods who had been cast out of heaven and unaccepted by hell due to how sick they were. Therefore, as punishment they were stripped of their powers and sent to a prison of sorts that had the power and forced to restrain them. Until now, that is. Long time since I saw Naruto. The gray-haired man stepped forward, his face scarred beyond even unearthly repair. How could anyone forget seeing a face like yours, Ryo? He taunted, causing the man to growl. The face you caused me, he snapped. Naruto simply shrugged, not my fault you thought I was a pushover, and found out the hard way. Enough talking, let's just kill him already. An orange-haired man shouted. Ryo shrugged before smirking. Fine by me, I would say it was nice knowing you Naruto, but that would be telling a lie. Naruto simply undid his cloak letting it flow with the wind. His 3 Tomo Sharingan formed into his eternal Mangekyou stage, as he took a Taijutsu stance. Who will be the first to fall before God? He asked the men, as they charged. Dodging reckless punch after punch, he retaliated with an uppercut, sending one flying, and dodging a kick aimed at his back. He jumped back avoiding a fireball that hit the ground sending debris everywhere before seeing 4 more approaching. Sujin Haki. Flashing through hand seals, he raised a wall of water that blocked all 4, but sent steam everywhere that blinded his Sharingan. Can't use that special eye now can you, he heard Ryo call out. I didn't need it to beat you losers before, and I don't need it now. Naruto mocked earning growls from all around him. Just I already. A voice yelled from behind. He turned around, and caught a fist aiming for his face before gripping the hand tightly, breaking the bones within it. The man gave a pain-filled scream that froze everyone in the vicinity, before he gave a disgusting squelch from his throat, and a thud was heard. The pulse of chakra was felt through their bodies, as the steam cleared showing a completely new Naruto. This Naruto wore an Anbu mask of sorts, though it was completely black with only red markings for slits around the eye holes, his eyes showing the EMS, and the once long-sleeved shirt he wore gone. Showtime, he said, as he took off at a blinding speed towards his first victim who paled. Ao also paled considerably, remembering just how dangerous Naruto was when that mask came out. He was like a bloodthirsty animal that stopped at nothing to acquire what he wanted, and if you just happened to be in his way, you lost your life. He was referred to as Yami Naruto. Forget it, I'll just kill the women, and take the 9 tails chakra when I'm conveniently hidden away from him. He said, clear fear in his voice. Oh you are? A voice said behind him. Ryotsutsuki's eyes widened as he turned around only to get hit in the face, sending him into some trees and nearby into a forest. Naruto turned to 4 of his clones and nodded before he took off after Ao. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.